Hi everyone, wherever you are, hope you're having a wonderful week so far. We're here with the latest episode of the Inside Crypto Show, interviews and discussion with regular people just like yourselves. Today we're joined by a special guest, Alex Wilke, co-founder of Pendulum. You might have seen them across social media, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. That's how I found out about it. Pendulum is an open source blockchain that aims to establish the missing link between the fiat and DeFi ecosystems. A fiat-optimized smart contract blockchain. Before we get into the nitty-gritty about some of that, let's talk about Alex and his background. Alex, thank you so much for making time in the afternoon. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Alex, as you said, co-founder of Pendulum, also CEO of SatoshiPay, and I'm into crypto since 2013. So I've seen a lot of ups and downs and products and non-products. So that was very exciting. My earlier background was in the startup scene in Berlin. I was a producer, technical product manager, and also team lead in various startups here in Berlin, which helped me a lot to become then CEO and since last year CEO of SatoshiPay. We are building blockchain products since 2014 with Satoshi Pay. And there was a kind of evolution going on. We were starting off with payment platforms, micropayments, then focusing on cross-border payments, hitting some limits in the blockchain that were existing already. So that was the birth hour then of Pendulum, where we decided, okay, let's build it, fitting blockchain for cross-border payments. Yeah, stablecoin focus, fiat focus, and then with DeFi and smart contracts. This is where we are now.
Very nice. Alex, so you mentioned getting started in 2013. Do you remember what was that specific thing that pushed you to say, I need to look deeper into this? I need to figure out why this is happening. Like, what was that specific memory or news story or moment?
There were a couple of small meetups, I think, here in Berlin with the usual nerds talking about something. And I got the white paper of Bitcoin, I think, read through. It was a pretty good read. Actually, I thought, well, okay, that sounds pretty interesting. And then at a meetup, I learned a little more about it. And I wanted to try it out if it really works. Let's say, I was always interested in how money actually is transferred, right? And it's really hard to understand from a normal person's standpoint. So some database is edited in a bank and then in another bank, and they have some agreements. It's really crazy if you think about it. And I thought, all right, that sounds actually pretty interesting and actually very understandable how Bitcoin works. And so I tried it out. I think it was only peer-to-peer. There were no exchanges back then. So I needed to buy Bitcoin from someone. And I could spend it actually because there was already a bar here in Berlin accepting Bitcoins. So it was very early times. I think they were one of the first worldwide accepting Bitcoins in a bar. So that was my test case. I wanted to purchase something. I wanted to pay with it without touching a bank or anything else. I downloaded the wallet. The wallet developer was also at the meetup there. So I bought Bitcoin for, I don't know, 20 euros or something. I wanted to spend it for some beers. And it actually worked, and it worked pretty quickly also in the bar. And that was my test for it. Okay, this is not just people telling me something about it, right? There's something working. And that was mind blowing to me because thinking about it, that you can create value just on the internet, that was crazy for me. And I knew, okay, this is something very disruptive. If we automate that trust point here, that's not only automating it, there comes a real extra value to it by automating it, right? To really lose that intermediary that you have to. And I knew, okay, there will be tons of possibilities for that, and was watching the space then after that pretty closely.
Nice. Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's a good story. I know it's maybe too long to
No, not at all, not at all. There's more questions I want to ask about this, but I have to follow the script. I got to move on, unfortunately.
Sure, let's go for it.
Alex, before we get into the questions for today, I just want to remind everyone who are listening or watching this on YouTube, anything said by either Alexander or myself does not constitute financial or legal advice. Our opinions are our own and not to be connected with our respective organizations. Everyone, please do your own research. Alexander, there's so much I want to talk about, but before that, my first question has got to be, you already mentioned you are the CEO of Satoshi Pay, and that's where I know you. I've seen you on LinkedIn, I've seen you on Twitter before, tweets and that sort of stuff, and not to mention YouTube, different interviews. How did Pendulum come about? How did you go from Satoshi Pay to Pendulum? Maybe you could fill our listeners in on the background of this story.
Yes, I'm working and with a great team here. We are building blockchain products on Satoshi Pay for quite a while. the current focus is 100% actually Pendulum, because that's such an exciting project with also such a big importance also for the company. But let's say in terms of this product, I have to go back a little bit, because with Satoshi Pay, we built 3 years back, we built a cross-border transfer service called dtransfer.com. And we wanted to build a cross-border transfer service on chain, on blockchain, right? In the background, supported, powered by blockchain technology. To build this, we were looking for blockchains that were available for this, that had a lot of stable coins there. You could also exchange money on chain. So you had a little on-chain Forex. And we ended up using Stellar, the Stellar blockchain for that. And the Stellar blockchain is nicely integrated into many banking systems worldwide. So we also did a pilot. It was a closed alpha version. We could transfer money from Europe to Tanzania in 2 minutes, I think, total. It was to a bank account in Tanzania, right? That was very impressive. But Stellar itself is a blockchain which had no smart contracts. So they had a protocol-owned DEX, so they couldn't offer builders the opportunity to build AMMs and develop actually on the DEX and offer some more services on top of their chain. We thought, all right, we're also missing out some of the features here on Stellar, and we also need more liquidity than that. And also with the whole DeFi movement in the last 1-2 years, there was a lot more liquidity also coming into the space. And with those two things missing, we, as I already said in the intro, we decided to build a blockchain ourselves. And this is not just the next product we were building as Satoshi Pay and then branding it, selling it. This only works as a decentralized project. And that's why we needed to separate that completely from Satoshi Pay. And we're only, let's say, incubating the project, but once it's out, it will go decentralized. Satoshi Pay has still some tokens, can take part in governance, and will still as a core developer of that blockchain, but will only have a role as a service provider, let's say, for Pendulum, right? So Pendulum will have the main entity, it has a foundation, so it will be a DAO structure for Pendulum where the community can make the decisions and can run this blockchain. This is the, let's say, the key. If you're developing a layer one or if you're working in a decentralized space, this is the way things will work and will get extra traction also in the community and will also make the right decisions for the community. And this is something we want to build with Pendulum, and we want to build this shared financial infrastructure. And yeah, this is the two things. So the main focus definitely is on Pendulum, I would say, for everyone right now.
Okay. Researching this episode, I know one of the things I noticed was a very curious term was fiat-optimized smart contracts in a lot of your documentation. And fiat, for people who don't know, right, is money, it's euros, it's dollars, is real money. But what is wrong with the current smart contracts? There's like fiat-optimized smart contracts, right? Because Ethereum has smart contracts, Solana has smart contracts, Avalanche has smart contracts. What's wrong with the way they exist that you use the term fiat-optimized smart contracts?
Yeah, so I don't know if necessarily something is wrong with some other smart contracts, right? I would say we are optimizing, or let's say optimizing the infrastructure for the use of stable coins, fiat optimized, if you want to call it like that, fiat-backed stable coins. So what we will offer on protocol level to builders and smart contract developers, for example, real-time price feeds that they could use for these stable coins. So for different currencies, not only US dollar and euro, but also Canadian dollar, Brazilian real, Mexican pesos, yeah, the British pound. So other currencies than the standard ones, because we are going to develop an on-chain foreign currency exchange, so an FX on-chain with a variety of different currencies. And there are some parts that you can also from the technical aspect optimize. I said the price feeds. There is some more pieces of software like the stablecoin contracts themselves that you can optimize. And we are a parachain of Polkadot. Maybe we come to that later. But also on that software infrastructure, it is possible to build some of these features into the runtime of Pendulum. So they are not necessarily running in the smart contract of the app that is running, but it's running with the runtime. And that gives this smart contract in this palette an extra boost, like an extra performance boost of up to 100x. So it runs much faster. And also for the builders, it's very easy to build with those pre-built palettes because they don't need to, they should maybe audit them, but they are already audited. they are tested, and they can just use them as taking a book from a shelf, right, and plug it into their software. That's the idea of it. This is how we want to make the way easier, for businesses mainly, which is the focus.
Nice. I mean, like you gave the Tanzania example. As I live in Taiwan now, but I'm originally from South Africa, and sometimes I need to send money back to South Africa, and it is a gigantic pain to send money from Taiwan to South Africa. 2 pages of paperwork at a bank, IDs, passports, all that sort of stuff. And I've lived here for 14 years. Why do I need to keep filling that in? You gave that example, the Tanzania example. Is this what we're going to be able to do with Pendulum eventually? Is here in Taiwan, I can use Pendulum to send money to my mother's bank account in South Africa? Is that the end goal?
So that's not necessarily the long-term goal. So this will actually be possible on the short term. So we'll focus some initial geographies for that. I think Taiwan is not part of the initial set, but we are definitely expanding to more geographies this year. So we'll launch with a LATAM focus in Mexico, Brazil, US dollar, euro, and also some African currencies that we have. So we're bridging over all the currencies we know from Stellar blockchain, actually. So we also launched Spacewalk with a Stellar bridge to Pendulum on Polkadot. And this is what you could do, especially for businesses. It will be possible to transfer money, not only $100 or $1,000, but also, let's say, business transactions where they're importing stuff, so 10,000, 100,000. And there would be enough liquidity on our DEX that the fees and the slippage would still be very low compared to traditional finance transactions. So we're talking a difference on the foreign exchange where you usually pay, 1, 2, 3% sometimes, or even more with some of the non-often used currencies, right? And we have the goal to bring this to 5 basis points, so really a very low amount of that. We're competing with Curve or Uniswap V3 there, and our DEX that's launching on Pendulum will be 2x better with these stablecoin swaps. So that's another example of a fiat-optimized smart contract, actually. It's a decentralized exchange called Amber, 0xamber.com. They're launching also next week with our mainnet. And they have actually a pretty optimized slippage and fee model. And it's a novel design AM where you can exchange, especially stable coins, very efficiently.
Nice. And you mentioned you're launching next week, so you've got your DEX will be there next week. Roughly speaking, of course, you can't hold you to any timelines. Like, what's the rough roadmap for Pendulum and the associated sort of ecosystem this year?
The launch is for the big milestone, definitely for the first quarter. In the second quarter, we will probably finish some further infrastructure of the blockchain. So we'll come up with the price feeds and another protocol launching. Also, we need a money market on Pendulum, and we'll fix a little bit the usability issues. So we're really accelerating. We're going fast, right? So the second quarter will be where we will still finishing the main infrastructure parts, expanding already on some geographies where we integrate more stable coins into Pendulum. And then on the third quarter, we were already focusing on business because our initial target audience and focus will be on businesses. And there is for businesses a lot of friction of entering blockchain right now. And one main problem is that if you lose your private key, then your money is gone, right? That's just a big risk no business can actually take. So what we want to do is to develop and build, and we might cooperate also with someone there. We want to build a wallet, smart contract wallet for the Polkadot space, where you have user management, where you can set spending limits, right? Where you say, okay, someone else must sign, this transaction is just too big, or there were too many today, so that you have all the features you have in traditional finance for businesses also for your blockchain account. So we think that this is one main entry barrier and also a big security risk for people to join that game. So there will be a focus on business features like that, also for accounting integration or more business-friendly features coming in the third quarter. And there will be I think a revamp also in the UX, and this will then can go to the fourth quarter, I would say, where we see that really also non-crypto savvy people can enter the game and can use the platform for making cross-border payments, because we want to target like normal businesses, SMEs globally, expanding this year, of course, more and more of the geographies, but also bringing in completely new users. And the ideal case would be that don't even realize that they're using blockchain, right? That would be the optimal goal. Of course, they would need to do still their due diligence and their research, but we want to make this actually usable by much more users than we see today on blockchain.
Nice. And that sounds so exciting. Talking about that some more is like a typical sort of a blockchain launch, right? They'd have people already who might be contributors or passionate about the project. They might have already like pre-purchased tokens and that sort of stuff. People listening to this or watching this, Alex, like how would you like them to get involved? If they're regular, is like you said, you're targeting businesses. Is there a space for regular people like me to say, oh my God, this sounds exciting. I'm a big believer in stablecoins. The news today has been all about the Bank of England doing business with stablecoins. Is there a space for regular people, or are you just looking for businesses to say get involved with Pendulum and Satoshi Pay?
Yeah, so for now, there is the classical ways of getting involved. You can reach us on the Discord, for example, also on Twitter or in the Telegram. So you can join our community, our social channels. Maybe we can share a link tree in the description. And this way you can involve yourself and you want to contribute, right? If you're a developer or a builder, we can then put you in touch with the right people to talk to. We can also open doors on Polkadot itself. So if you want to build something for Polkadot, even looking beyond Pendulum, then we can also help you and set you up on that. There is grant program also from Pendulum for builders. And if you want to, I don't know, get in touch, run some infrastructure, also running a node, you can talk to us. So this is all supported, and we'll also, from the launch on, we also see some governance proposals actually coming in. So you can also take part and join our governance platform and make some nice proposals and suggestions over there and let it be voted on. So I think that's the way it can work, and great to see more people getting involved into that. We will, during the year, also start and see where we can actually go into more traditional business communities, because they don't necessarily are on Discord or on these channels. So we're also looking into that. If you're running also a business community somewhere, businesses on blockchain, we definitely would love to cooperate on that side.
Okay, so you heard it straight from Alex. If you are in the business community, this sounds very interesting, especially if you're somebody doing extra country business payments. You mentioned Polkadot. I did want to talk about that because I remember when they had the parachain auctions, people were contributing towards them and it was really exciting. People were like, yes, the vision's coming true. I feel like Polkadot enthusiasm has diminished a bit. Like, why did you choose Polkadot for building Pendulum?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we can also talk about the hype of Polkadot a little bit. It's still very early, right? Launching last year only with a big hype. And then, of course, there was a little bit of a downturn there with the sentiment. But we chose it already back then before they launched. We started building already in November 21, and even earlier that year, we were already developing on this substrate, which was a technical decision. So if you want to create a blockchain, you can do this, let's say, as a standalone project, or you join an ecosystem, right? And there is Ethereum then, or Cosmos space, or then Polkadot. And from our technical expertise and our technical experts, there was the decision, okay, substrate, that is really hot. It's great. It's great. It's a great software, a great code. They were big fans of that. And it also makes sense because you could already plug in these pellets for building your blockchain. So you're much faster, it's more secure. And that was the decision for the technical basis of it. To really join that ecosystem as a parachain was another decision coming a bit later, because we were looking at these hyped blockchains where you needed billions of crowd loans to enter that game. We thought, all right, we're not sure if we will build up such a community in such short time. But yeah, we decided anyway for that, because we thought, all right, we're trying to have an impact here, and it would really have exactly the right advantages that we would need. Because when we are launching now as a parachain of Polkadot, we get from day one, we get the shared security from Polkadot. And that's one of the biggest reasons actually why we chose that from the ecosystem perspective, because the Polkadot relay chain is securing also our blockchain, right? So any double spendings, any like general attack vectors are already covered by the Polkadot relay chain, because we're connected to that. And that's, I think, one of the greatest examples, because we wanted to target businesses, even fintechs later on with corporations. And how can they trust us as a team, 20 people somewhere, spinning up some nodes and then call it a decentralized blockchain, right? So there's a lot of risk involved if you think about that for big institutions and really serious partners. So now they don't need to trust us because it's secured by a multi-billion-dollar blockchain with high decentralization standards, right? And that's, I think, one of the greatest advantages the Polkadot ecosystem can deliver. There are, of course, much more because we are connected and can do interoperability transactions, actually, which are happening very trustlessly with other parachains, with other blockchains. So we can really cooperate pretty closely together on a technical level with other parachains, which makes a lot of sense. There is decentralized ID projects on Polkadot now. So there were a lot of parachains launched last year, and we have quite a few potential partners, and some are already our partners, which we can then cooperate with and really build a nice product for businesses or whatever target audience we're targeting without bridging, without extra risks. So this trustless interoperability is then, I think, the third big part, which only plays out once there are like 50 or more parachains connected. But for us, we already can see that some other parachains sharing the same target audience, and it's so easy then to cooperate with each other. So it makes a lot of sense for us.
You mentioned Spacewalk as well. I was wondering, this is not the question I was going to ask, but I was just thinking about what you said. You started Pendulum, right? And you're on your parachain of Polkadot. Why have this bridge between Stellar and your parachain, right? Like, why not just say, okay, brand new, let's just start everything from the beginning? Why keep the connection between Stellar and your parachain on Polkadot?
Very nice question, of course. We are like thinking what would be best, like if we were the user also, right? How can we kickstart this project as quickly as possible, as usable as possible for as many people who want to use Pendulum for a cross-border payment or an FX swap. And we were working with Stellar already since, I think, 2016, 2017. We already have a history of partnering with the Stellar blockchain, and we've seen what they did since then. So they invested a lot of time, and it was not always, let's say, appreciated by, I don't know, all the community, or it was not a hype path they were going, but they were going for the very long-term path of their mission, which is also cross-border payments. So there is an overlap, not necessarily for businesses, but for, let's say, private users, right? And they were going that path and were really investing into that, building the infrastructure with the banking integration and the stable coins. So there were 15 plus stable coins are already available there on Stellar, which is a unique value proposition right now out there. So you cannot find another blockchain that can offer that. Partners around the world are connecting and issuing stable coins in the various geographies. And so we actually saw, okay, I mean, we're also kickstarting this with the great high quality fiat-backed stable coins Stellar has. And also because the communities are overlapping between Stellar and Pendulum. Now, we also see a win-win here. The Stellar community has some more utility for their tokens. They can also take part in DeFi. And we're, in general, the whole mission further with a business focus from our side. And we're also bringing smart contracts actually to the Stellar side. There is a win-win here also for between Pendulum and Stellar. And I think that's mainly why we decided to build that bridge initially for Stellar, because this way we're ramping up a stablecoin fiat ecosystem on Polkadot very quickly. And in blockchain in general, it's more about this cooperation. Actually, it's a lot about cooperation instead of the competition. And sometimes something new will evolve from that also, right? Difference also to traditional business. I just recently talked about that also, yeah.
Very cool, Alex. You mentioned a keyword, right? And I know a lot of people listening to this podcast or watching the video be like, okay, bridges, oh my God, 2022, this bridge and that bridge. And bridges have come a lot way as somebody who has to read about the space a lot as my job, right? People listening to this, should they be worried? How secure is Spacewalk? You mentioned, right, and people familiar with Polkadot would understand the idea of the relay chain and the security there. That's fine. What about Spacewalk and security there?
Yeah, that's a great topic. I think in general, security after all the hacks we've seen last year was evolving also further and further. So there were tons of these bridge hacks with like multi-sig secured collateral and stuff like that. So our approach there is that we want to build a bridge that is as trustless as possible. So from the general concept and architecture, it has more security than a multi-signature wallet or that secures some funds. If you want to join, or let's say how Spacewalk is built, it is a decentralized, it is fully collateralized bridge. So there are vault operators on the Polkadot side operating the software, the bridge, and putting up the collateral also for the funds that are bridged over from Stellar. And this is not, I don't know, some team members or core team members, these vault operators will be there from the community. So these will be decentralized vaults that also get slashed. So it is a concept that is in general a very trustless concept. It was inspired, big shout out to the Interlay team who was building the Bitcoin bridge to, or bridging Bitcoins to Polkadot that was based on. Also, currently the code is audited and there are also, everything is fixed there before we launch. That's also, I think, very important fact that everything is externally audited so we can be safe with that software. Of course, there's always a risk, right? Smart contract risk is always there. So we try to adopt or that what we've seen as security risks also last year. And I think, yeah, with this trustless bridge concept, that's one way to tackle it. Another way is, of course, how Polkadot is doing this with the relay chain and cross-chain communication. There will be also some bridges coming up to Polkadot that are even more secure than such a concept like Spacewalk.
Nice. Alex, let's take a step back. 2022 was a pretty crazy year for crypto. Launching Pendulum in 2023 is a very bold move, I would say. I think most people would say that, right? Why launch a new blockchain in 2023 given the big macro factors, Russia, Ukraine, supply chain problems, on and off pandemic issue? Were you affected in 2022 by everything that happened, or like how did everything come about given FTX, given 3AC, given Luna into Pendulum that it is today?
Yeah, it was a crazy ride last year. And luckily we had a pre-sale beginning of that period. We were not affected by, funding the project with that, which was great. So we could focus on building during all this chaos. But also what mainly happened is that you could see that centralized systems and traditional finance actually had big problems in 2022, not necessarily Uniswap or Aave or some DeFi protocols or blockchains. So there was no blockchain security, was not affected or hacked. And also DeFi protocols, major DeFi protocols were not hacked. Bridges, yes, but let's say the general innovations and disruptions like the AMM money market, right? That you have less intermediaries. All this concept actually was proven because you cannot hide something in the balance sheet and just say you have 10 million here, because everyone can 24/7 audit the code and the reserves that are on the public blockchain. And this way, there's much more security on that side. So it was very tragic to see, on the one hand, that actually the big proof of putting a DeFi on public blockchain was given last year. Unfortunately, this affected the crypto sentiment and the general also funding opportunities for other projects. But I think, as I have seen a lot of hypes, ups and downs already, it was just business as usual, as you would say. Then you just focus on building it. And because we knew we're definitely on the right path, because there are certain advantages, the settlement risks, the transaction speed, the costs are different for the product that we are building. We knew, okay, we're on the right track here and the sentiment will come eventually. And I think this is what we're seeing also. We went through our crowd loan for Polkadot in December in a record time. In 3 minutes, the cap was closed. That was, I think, a Polkadot record at that time. And we were very surprised by that and thought, all right, maybe we're coming back, right? That maybe crypto's coming back right now. So yeah, that's, I think, my take on it. And I think that's also what you hear from everyone. Let's just continue building and then you'll see how this goes. You'll be successful eventually.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. That's, despite everything, I think there's still a lot of passion behind crypto. There's still a lot of curiosity behind it. Even from non-crypto people, like, yeah, I'm skeptical, but if I had the right chance, I would get involved again, or I would get involved for the first time. So I think people still want to get involved, but there's still a lot of people like, yep, give me an easy way to send money or to invest my money or to speculate and buy NFTs or whatever it is, and people will take advantage.
Exactly. Especially when I think of it as a counter view on the market. I've just seen a tweet over the weekend where you could see the weekly volume growth for stablecoin transactions, especially, and also the number of users per week. And it was just going up all the time, despite the events last year. So there was like a time, okay, there was a bankruptcy of that centralized exchange here, and it was not affecting that curve at all. And that's more or less the use case curve that we are also having in mind for our business. So for Pendulum, for the Pendulum project. And I think that was a nice proof of that not everything is dependent on the sentiment, right? There's valid use cases.
Exactly.
Also, yeah.
Alexander, I don't want to keep you too much. I didn't want to say congratulations for launching next week and working so hard to get Pendulum done. As somebody I'm not a big lover of any blockchain, but I think innovation in the space is awesome. It should be celebrated and congratulated and supported. So I'm glad that I have a chance to talk to you and let everyone else listen to what you said today and be interested and say, hey, new stuff is happening in crypto, new stuff is happening in blockchain tech. And so I'm very impressed and I'm looking forward to talking about this more. I just want to give you a last chance, right, before we end up today's show. If there's anything you want to say about Pendulum, Satoshi Pay, what you're doing, anything you want to plug, to say, hey, this is the sort of key moment you should listen for. Last words you want to give our audience today?
I think I can only motivate everyone who hasn't really looked into crypto, into transferring money, to try it out, test it out. I think that's always what I loved about it, that you can read about it and unnecessary registrations of user accounts somewhere. You can just join new protocols and products, test them out, try them out, and see how they work. I think it's very easy to find some disruptive moments there still in crypto, and I'm very much looking forward to also remove the friction for everyone who's still afraid of the user experience and the UIs that they see. And very much looking forward to see you then and help you on Pendulum.
Fantastic. As usual, like as Alex said, I will put all the links there. Pendulum's links, Satoshi Pay's links, Alex's links. So Alex is on Twitter as well. You guys should definitely have a look at his Twitter account. And Alexander, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to leave you a little bit of time before your next meeting so you can go walk around, stretch, maybe grab some coffee before you have to do another phone call. And hopefully we can talk to you maybe towards the end of the year. You can fill us in how the roadmap is going, how Pendulum's going, how everything you've talked about today has progressed. And I'd love to do that recap. Hopefully if you have time in December sometimes this year.
Yes, would love to. Thanks for having me and looking forward to that. Great being here.
Thank you as well, Alex. And then everyone else, please don't forget to check out Pendulum and stay tuned maybe for a few months later and we'll get Alex on the podcast again.
Thank you.